Hello and welcome to Topical Top 10s here on the Football 365 show. I'm Mark Smith. I'm here with Matt Stead of Football365.com. If you enjoyed the show, don't forget to like and subscribe and press the little notification button as well so you don't miss a show going forwards. Matt Stead, what's our top 10 please this week?
Our top 10 this week is the biggest disappointments of the Premier League season so far.
Great, keep it nice and positive, eh?
Well, yeah, last week we had
Why not?
the top 10 players last week, so yeah, we're going flip side now.
Yeah, there's some on this list I can't agree with number 10. Well, it doesn't matter. Anyway, this is Topical Top 10s here in the Football 365 show. Right, Matt, let's start. Number 10, Anthony Martial, or Anthony Martial, as my Ole Gunnar Solskjaer impression would have you here.
Excellent impression. Why do you disagree with this inclusion, Mark?
I'll tell you why. Because we're sort of swayed a little bit by recency bias. He was very good at the end of last season, so we all think he should be doing as well as he was then. But it's been hampered a little bit, hasn't it, by that 3-match suspension. And he's been good in Europe. I just think he was a bit lost in the Everton game. But generally, I think he's been okay when he's been playing, which isn't enough.
Yeah, I mean, you do have to take the red card into account. He did get sent off. That wasn't really anyone else's fault. It was his fault for rising to Lamella. But also, he's started 4 games this season. He's not created a single chance or had a shot on target in any of them. So I do understand what you mean in terms of the recency bias, but also I think with this list, it's not necessarily worst players, because some of them aren't even players on this list. It is just the disappointments in terms of the expectations we had of Martial.
That's it. It's expectation.
Yeah, from the back end of last season, we had the expectation of Martial that he'd be this goal scorer, but it's not happened so far.
No, not so far. Right, number 9, another one who suffers with this high expectation, because he always seems to be a bit of a nightmare to play against. Chris Wood at Burnley.
Yeah, similar standard of player to Martial, Chris Wood. He scored with his first shot of the season. He's had 12 since, and he's not scored with any of them. But I suppose it's kind of indicative of Burnley's malaise, really, that he's pretty much their attack entirely. I know they've got Ashley Barnes as well. He's been kind of moved out to the wing inexplicably at times by Sean Dyche this season. But Wood has led the line, and he's not done a great job, really.
No, Ashley Barnes, though, being back, I think they're so good as a partnership that I do think that give them a few games, 5, 6, 7 games in a row together, and I think they'll rekindle that, won't they? Yeah,
possibly, but then I think the frustration with Burnley is that Dyche has got other options. He's got Rodriguez tends to start most games, but they've also got like Matej Vidra there, who I'm sure you know quite well, but I mean, he's found it difficult to make that step up from the Championship to the Premier League at times, but he's surely a better option when you're struggling to get behind the defence than Wood and Barnes.
But he's more of a number 10, isn't he? So yeah, he could drop in and do some damage. Anyway, let's move on. Number 8, Raheem Sterling.
Sterling, yeah, it's a similar one to Martial in terms of he's obviously not been bad. He's scored a couple of goals. He's got 1 assist, I think. But in terms of what we expect from Sterling, especially at the start of seasons, he seems to start like rapidly for City. And again, with City, they've not started brilliantly themselves. But he's kind of he's been that one constant in that attack, and he has really struggled this season, I think.
Yeah, but another one. Yeah, I mean, you're right. He's a victim of his own success, really, isn't he, to get on this sort of list? But he is much better off when he has a proper striker playing with him, whether that's Jesus or Aguero. And obviously, they've both been out for an extended period of time this season so far. So I hope that once one of them is back and firing fully, we saw Jesus at the weekend, looked good, and Sterling looked better as a result, so hopefully that will continue. Number 7, you've not gone for a player here, you've gone for the entire team of Brighton.
Just the entire concept of Brighton, really. It's quite disappointing.
The city of Brighton.
Just the entire place of Brighton. It's a massive disappointment.
To say more than that, we can't leave it there, Jesus.
No, I think we should move on, to be honest, mate. Now, in terms of Brighton, it's you look at some of their stats, it's kind of, you look at them and you think they should be much higher. They're 16th in the table currently. They've won 1 game, they've lost 4. And they have been difficult to beat at times. They've played really well against, especially the bigger teams, they've played really well, but they just keep losing games. And they don't score goals that often. I think they've conceded the fewest shots of any team in the Premier League. And yet only 4 clubs, I think it is, have conceded more goals than them. So something's gone wrong there.
Something's gone wrong. You're right about the bigger teams as well. They were really good against Chelsea and United. And you thought, well, that's Chelsea and United. Teams will lose to them. But apart from that Newcastle away result, they've really flattered to deceive. And it's a team I like to watch, really. But do you think they'll pick up? Potter's the right guy for them, isn't he?
He's a brilliant manager. I really like him, and he deserves a lot of credit for how he's changed things from Houghton, obviously, for a smaller club to kind of change their entire style into a more passing style from the conservative one. He deserves a lot of credit for that, but they're struggling to make that final step. It is that goal scorer they're lacking, I think.
Yeah, let's wait and see. Number 6, a player who West Ham fans were losing their minds over in the summer, Grady Diangana.
Yeah, it seems like a good deal for West Ham now, doesn't it? Getting 18 million for him. He scored that goal against Everton, but he's not done anything else aside from that, really, for West Brom.
No, it's difficult, isn't it? When he's a young player and he's got a lot of expectation on those shoulders already. You know, West Brom are going to struggle this season. It's a lot to ask, isn't it?
It is, yeah, but we've seen kind of Mateus Pereira. He could easily have been on this list as well, and we've spoken before about the wingers that West Brom have got. Those attacking options, theoretically,
I'm a big fan of both.
Yeah, they're theoretically really exciting, and they obviously ripped up the Championship at times. But the Premier League, obviously, it's a different standard. You're facing different standards of defenders, different systems, and I think they've struggled so far.
Yeah. Number 5, Pablo Hernandez.
Pablo Hernandez, yeah, he's only started a couple of games so far this season, and I do massively risk the wrath of Leeds fans by even suggesting that he might have been a disappointment so far. I do understand that, and I will have to probably move home, but that's fine. In terms of Hernandez, yeah, it's a bit of a shame, but still. In terms of Hernandez, like I say, he's only started a couple of games, and it was against, I can't remember which game it was actually, but he was subbed off, and Bielsa dropped him from the squad for the next game. And he's not been seen since. So he's issued an apology on Instagram, I think it was. But he's kind of
right.
He's in a difficult situation with Bielsa now, and he's not really kicked on as we'd have expected from a player like Hernandez.
Well, but it's difficult, isn't it, to kick on? He's not a young lad anymore. He's a stalwart, really, and he's a legend at Leeds. There's no getting around that now. He is a legend at Leeds, and I think everyone wants to see him do well. But sometimes it is a step too far at a late part of your career, and it's impossible to kick on. But I think he'll still come good this season. Number 4, someone who seems to have gone missing entirely, Dele Alli.
Yeah, Dele Alli's brother seems to have turned up again this season. It is a shame to kind of see his career. I don't think we should say his career's petered out, but it's just kind of stalled so much under Mourinho. Despite that, the first couple of months it seemed to have kind of kick-started after a difficult period under Pochettino, but he's just dropped out of the squad completely now, and he's been usurped by not necessarily better players, but players who are going to commit themselves to the cause more, who are going to train better.
Yep.
Obviously, there was those clips from the Spurs documentary where Mourinho's digging into him, and Ali's just laughing it off, and that's not the kind of character that Mourinho tends to stick around with.
No, that's right. I've not seen a player more in need of a move for a long time. He's obviously got so much ability. I just want to see him do well again somewhere, and I think that probably is away from Jose and Spurs. Number 3, you're going for a manager, Chris Wilder.
Chris Wilder, yeah. Again, it's similar with Potter in that I love Wilder, and obviously he's done an absolutely phenomenal job at Sheffield United. But this season, I think with Sheffield United, they've been hit more than anyone by the lack of fans, really. It drops their intensity that slight bit. They lose maybe 5% of their intensity, and then that because their belief and their mentality is always made up for that lack of quality, that gap in terms of the Premier League. But without that, it's been kind of shown that these players probably shouldn't have finished 9th last season. They shouldn't have been battling for European spots. They massively overachieved last season.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, tactically very good, Chris Wilder, and last season we all talked about the overlapping centre-backs and whatnot, but you're right, that 5% is huge, isn't it? Because in elite sport, 1% can make all the difference. So we'll see what happens when the crowds, and if the crowds come back, but I'd still fancy Wilder to get them out of this predicament they're in now, and hopefully kick on once crowds are back in. Number 2, Arsenal's new boy, Willian.
Willian, yeah, he started excellently, obviously got, I think it was 3 assists on that opening day against Fulham. But then that's what Chelsea fans said would happen. They said he would have 4 or 5 brilliant performances in a season where you kind of think this is a proper player here. This is a player that used to be signed for £30 million, a player that Liverpool and Chelsea used to fight over in Tottenham. But then he has the rest of the season where he just does absolutely nothing, and he doesn't offer anything to the team. They gave him a 3-year contract, and we're a few months into that now, and you're starting to wonder quite why they did that.
Yeah, I agree. I think against Villa he was particularly quiet, shall we say. Number 1 on this list of most disappointing players of the season so far, you've got Roberto or Bobby Firmino.
Bobby Firmino, yes, as commentators.
Can I just say how much I hate when they call him Bobby Firmino. He's not your mate. He's not your mate. He's a footballer. He's a good footballer. But Bobby Firmino, let's stop this Bobby Firmino nonsense. Quick note on that first, please, Matt.
Yeah, let's underline it here. Let's stop the Bobby Firmino train, please.
This ends now.
We've stopped the count. Stop the Bobby Firmino count. Yeah.
So why is he number 1 on this list of bigger disappointments?
Yeah, I suppose we should talk about that, really. He's just struggling massively. And it's a shame to see, because Firmino, again, we've spoken about him before, he's so central to how Liverpool work, to how they operate, to their system. But then eventually, and I know with Firmino you can't judge him by his goals or even his assists really, but eventually it does boil down to something like that when he's not offering the counter pressing that he used to do in quite as impressive a fashion before. He's not giving the same defensive numbers. He's not linking up with players.
So why is he not doing that though, Matt? What's the reason for him not doing those things? Because those things are easy to correct, aren't they?
You'd think so, yeah. And it could be a combination of things. It could be a lack of fitness. Obviously, a lot of players will struggle with that this season. It could be something to do with that. It could simply be that that kind of front three, Firmino, Salah and Mane, they've been there for years. And that never happens at this level of football. You never get an attacking trio that have got that kind of longevity, really. So it does eventually go stale.
Yeah, of course. Having said that, they're still probably going to win the league, aren't they? Right, that wraps it up for this week. Matt Stead, thank you for joining me this week. Thank you guys at home for watching. If you want to get in touch with the show, you can email us. It's theeditor@football365.com. We'll be back with more Topical Top 10s, same time next week.